I'm endlessly fascinated and curious about the world around us, about business, about politics, about the arts, about culture, developments, social issues, and the people. Most importantly, about the people that are shaping our future. Every night, I get the opportunity to have conversations, to dive into conversations with thought leaders, with change makers, entrepreneurs, politicians, and everyday heroes who unpack the ideas and stories that I think matter to all of us. What's the future of our economy? What's the future of our country? How do we build stronger communities? What can we learn from music, theater, sports, politics, the arts? How does policy shape our real lives? What does leadership look like, real leadership in today's environment? If it's interesting and relevant and topical and we're talking about it, you'll hear about it here at 6 o'clock on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I want to have real conversations, in-depth conversations. These are ideas we're sharing. This is the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Thanks for joining me. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I've got Dani DePetrillo with us tonight. She is the Chief Operating Officer of an organization called Right at Home Canada. And we're going to be talking about the challenges of getting old and older and what to do. Dani joined the Right at Home Canada team in 2012. Bringing with her over 15 years of patient care, client service, and managerial experience in the healthcare field. She was the co-owner and regional manager of a series of interdisciplinary health and wellness centers for one of Canada's largest healthcare companies. Her experience focused on operations, clinical and patient program development, human resources management, and training. In addition, she was also the director of operations for CarePath, a care assistance program offering nurse navigation and cancer support services to over 350,000 Canadians and their families. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about aging, about Care Home Canada. We're going to talk a little bit about you, and we're going to talk about what to do if you're caring for a loved one that is in that stage of life. So tell me, if you could, Dani, a little bit about yourself and Right at Home, and who are you, and what do you do, and what's the company all about?
Thanks, Brian. So Right at Home Canada, we're one of the largest providers of what we call in-home supportive care services. So that's when we bring wonderful caregivers into people's homes, wherever homes happen to be for them at the time. It can be something as temporary, hopefully as a hospital. It could be they're living with their daughter. It could be that they're in the home where they raise their kids, or it could be that they've downsized to a condo. It really doesn't matter what the environment is. We bring people in to assist them to what we call age in place or live in place, which is a concept around, someone's desire to stay in the home environment that they choose, as opposed to having to move to a residential sort of community or facility, long-term care home, retirement community, etc. So Right at Home, we have 50 offices across the country. We are one of the largest providers globally. We're in 7 countries around the world. I have the pleasure of leading a wonderful leadership team here at Right at Home Canada, and we support our offices from coast to coast. And that's what we do, Brian.
So is this healthcare people? Is this personal care workers? Is this people that are going to go do your banking for you? Like, what is it, the services that you provide?
Great question. So we provide everything from what we call sort of the hands-off companionship side of things, which might be helping someone grocery shop or doing the grocery shopping for them, helping prepare some meals, all the way up to if someone's struggling with their personal hygiene, we can have the hands-on services around, bathing, grooming, dressing, that kind of thing. We have cognitive impairment assistance as well. And then we go all the way up to, let's say, palliative nursing. So even end of life, if someone is unfortunately at the end of their life and they wish to pass it home, then we can, help with that, with the nursing services for that. So it's a full range of supportive care services.
Is this a replacement for seniors housing, or is this, what someone does before one has to go into a seniors home, or how do you compare to the other alternatives that are available to people?
Yeah. So I would say, Brian, that most people's choice is to live in place or age in place as long as they possibly can. And my philosophy is there's absolutely no reason why you can't until your final days, with the supports that we can provide, what the government can provide, and all kinds of technology that we have in place now. But some people sort of end up starting with this type of service, and then at some point they might move to a retirement community. It's really sort of a personal choice for them. There was an interesting study by the National Institute of Aging in 2022. 96% of Canadians in this Canadian study age 65 plus want to stay at home as long as they possibly can, and they'll do anything that they can to stay out of long-term care, which was a very interesting, attitude that we have with our Canadians. And I think I see it mimicked in our offices all day, every day. People just want to stay at home. Why would they want to go to a long-term care home? It's not sort of your goal at the end of in your sunset years to be going to long-term care. So, our philosophy is let's help our clients be as independent as possible in their own homes with the services that we and other supports can provide.
At the same time, and I've heard this from numerous different people, I saw a TED Talk on it just recently, that the most important predictor of successfully living longer is social interaction,
Yep.
and talking to people and different people on a fairly regular basis. If you're stuck at home, versus being in a seniors care facility, are you going to get that kind of social interaction that you need?
Yeah, so socialization is definitely one of sort of the four key pillars of aging in place. And you do have to have a plan for that because as people age, unfortunately, sometimes their social network is also aging and then they'll go into a long-term care home or maybe they're having a struggle in their own home and they don't have the same opportunities that they may have in their younger years to socialize. However, with the right plan in place, families in place, making sure that people are staying connected through whether it's an iPad or phone calls, the help of bringing in supportive care services and in a trusted environment where someone can connect with the caregiver. All of those things are very, very important. Having said that, if someone's super social and they really love sort of that, I call it the cruising mentality. They love to be on a cruise all day, every day, and they love to talk to people and they love to go down to the dining hall and have their meals and what have you. That's when our care planners might look at the family and say, hey, mom or dad might actually do really, really well in a retirement community. And so you look at those options when the time comes and you make the informed decision.
There's some things that I've heard about as being really successful. Playing bridge on a regular basis, or going to book clubs on a regular basis, or going to I think there was something about yoga or exercise in a pool or something like this.
Yep.
Those kinds of things are they things that your people will get involved in recommending or helping people participate in?
Absolutely. So a lot of our clients were helping them socialize. So we're actually taking them to, the senior center or to the community center for some of these events if they don't have the transportation themselves, or perhaps their daughter lives too far to do it, or perhaps we're standing in for the daughter from time to time. Maybe we take on Sundays and she takes on Tuesdays and Thursdays and that kind of thing. It's really just, we're there to help the family care for their loved one in whatever way it's going to be important. So we do take our clients out to bridge classes. We do take them to the rec center, to the pools, and those kinds of things. So if they need help doing those kinds of things, we're there for them.
You really think that over 90%, I think you said 97% of the people want to stay at home?
Yep. Yep. Do you?
I do. And it's interesting because I think that we're going to run into a big problem, a big challenge, if we don't figure out a way as a society to enable people to stay at home productively. Because as the baby boom age, we're going to have a dramatic increase in the number of people that are over the age of, now it's over the age of 65, but in a couple of years, it's going to be over the age of 80 or 90. And at the same time, we're living longer. And so therefore, there's going to be this, someone told me a tsunami of demand for either aging at home or aging in an institutional environment. And there's no way that we can build enough seniors developments to house everyone, whether it's just the actual cost of it and or the infrastructure that we need. So staying at home, particularly if people want to stay at home, is something we got to figure out how to do and do better.
And do better. So the figuring out part is well on its way. Where we struggle is we have sort of a combination of both government funded services and services that are not funded by the government. So we have what we call family funded services. The governments across Canada, there's absolutely no way that they will ever be able to meet the true needs of someone in their home environment. The budget's just not there. You hit the nail on the head. We have an aging population. We have a lower tax base too, Brian, because we have fewer people in the workplace, and we have all of these people retiring at 65 and living for another 30 years, 35 years, and needing services as they live in place. So you're right on point with exactly what needs to happen. How it happens, it's going to be a combination of the government. It's going to be a combination of families realizing that there are things that aren't paid for by the government and planning for those things, planning for as part of the retirement living. And it's going to be a combination of technology. And those three factors are going to swirl around very successfully in keeping people in place. No one solution, I don't think, will ever be a standalone only solution. I think it has to be a combination.
If people want to check out your company, your services, is there a website they should go to?
Yep, rightathomecanada.com. Right at home. So it's RIGHTATHOME Canada.com.
We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just 2 minutes, talking about aging and aging at home and how one does it with someone that's running an organization that's trying to solve this problem. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We got Dani DePetrillo with us tonight. She runs an organization that's really focused on helping people age in place. Dani, maybe you could tell me how your organization fits into sort of what I sort of see as sort of the spectrum of different companies. I interviewed someone from Spectrum Healthcare, and then also someone from, I think it was an advocacy group called Ontario Home Canada or Care Ontario or something like that. Tell me about, sorry, what was it called?
Home Care Ontario, likely. Yeah.
Home Care Ontario. Tell me about the different organizations and where you fit, your organization fits in servicing, this issue.
Sure. So in Ontario specifically, there are a number of organizations that deal mostly with the government delivered care. So most people in almost all provinces other than BC, home care services that are delivered through government means are not actually delivered by government employees. They're contracted out to organizations that have the quality assurance and accreditation that's required to deliver care on behalf of the government. So regardless of where you're accessing government services, it could be a number of providers. So particularly in Ontario, there are a number of large providers that focus on delivering government care. Now, the challenge we have across the board is, as I mentioned earlier, the government-supported services cannot provide the full suite of services needed to successfully keep someone at home. I like to akin it to having a large piece of bread and a couple tablespoons of peanut butter, and the budget only goes so far, and everybody has to share a small piece of that bread. If someone is looking to top up services, so let's just say there's a gap between what the government is offering to the family and what the family can provide themselves, they may turn to an organization like ours for what we call top-up services. So that would be, calling right at home and funding those either through an insurance plan or through retirement retirement funds, or just family. I've often had, back in the day, I used to actually run my own offices, and I had a lot of situations where the daughters pooled funds together to keep their parents at home. And so we kind of have this cooperative system whereby the government-supported home care services and the family-funded services have to fit like cogs in a wheel, and we have to make sure that the other piece of the pie, which is the daughters, the sons, the neighbors, the friends who are caring for this loved one, are also part of this, but that they're not overburdened. And so that's how sort of our system fits in. You had mentioned Spectrum. They're a wonderful provider of government services. CBI is another wonderful provider. Bayshore you see across the country. And then you see Right at Home sort of working in tandem with them to close those gaps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Are you Toronto, Ontario, Canada? What's your organization?
We're Canada-wide. Yeah, the only provinces we're not in are in Quebec, Newfoundland, and Saskatchewan right now. So we provide services from coast to coast.
I've seen on U.S. Cable networks, Place for Mom and a whole bunch of agencies that try to figure out, where elderly people should go, and they almost sound like they're real estate agents or recruitment agents. Is that something you guys do?
So we like to think of ourselves as, more shepherding our clients through whatever decisions they're making. A Place for Mom, for example, would be focusing more on if someone's looking specifically for a retirement community, that advisor might help them, pare down to 2 or 3 in their community, book a tour, that kind of thing. Of course, our care planners will do that, but typically we're in the home providing the supports there. And then if there is a decision to move out of the home into a retirement community, we do assist them with that. Absolutely. Our focus is staying at home. And Brian, this is an issue not only for our older adults, this is an issue for our younger, differently abled adults as well. And we support an awful lot of those. We have a lot of clients who have cancer, CP, we have multiple sclerosis, and these are younger individuals. These are not what you typically think of chronologically aged individuals. And so it's the aging side of it is the heavier weight, but there are a number of community members that are also in positions where, they have to piece together solutions to keep them safely at home.
That's interesting. I was in a car accident,
Mhm.
and I had to stay home, and I had some problems with mobility for a while. I had someone that came. I have no idea, frankly, who that person was, where they came from, who they were funded by, but they came and they arranged for a whole bunch of different things to make staying at home and life a little bit easier, including
Yeah.
getting a juicer for making yogurt more easily in the morning because I couldn't
Yeah.
be safely frying bacon and eggs and stuff like that. So, is that the kind of services you're talking about?
Yep. Those ones for sure. And you lived it. I mean, you lived a temporary kicking out of your regular routine, and I certainly hope you completely recovered. And it looks as to me as though you did, fortunately. Some of our clients were in car accidents, workplace injuries. Some of our clients are unfortunately in a chronic condition situation that they won't recover from, but they are still chronologically quite young. I remember supporting a young individual. He was 23 years old, living in a long-term care community because of his care needs. And we came in with a caregiver to help socialize with him because he was not relating, obviously, to the older adults that were typically in the long-term care home. He wanted someone to do some technology stuff with him and play on an iPad and do social media stuff. And so that's a really good example of how we can tailor what we do to the specific or unique individual that we're supporting.
I had an interesting conversation with someone recently who said, Brian, the sandwich generation issue is going to change dramatically because, people complained that they had to take care of aging parents and young kids at the same time. Now it's different because people are living longer. It's the person in their 60s and 70s that may be actually retiring that are taking care of people in their 90s and above. And so it's not sort of the sandwich generation. It's a seniors generation that are taking care of even older seniors. Is that happening? And how does that change how the family and the role of family plays?
It's a really interesting discussion. We've actually supported intergenerational clients living in the same home, a son and his father. The father was 97, the son was 76, both, chronologically aging, both needing support. And, rewind 20 years ago, you would not have seen that. So we're starting to see that. And the person calling in for services and asking us for help and saying, like, look, I don't know which way to turn. I have to care for my aging aunt or my aging mother. They're not necessarily 40 years old anymore, or 45 years old. They're up in their 70s in some cases. And you do still see like the 50-year-old daughter, the 50-year-old son calling about their 75, 80, 90-year-old mom. You do see that, but you're starting to see because of that, the 100-plus-year-old people that are living well and living well beyond the typical expectation. Their daughters are in their 80s or in their 70s. And so it's a really interesting situation. We all call it here the triple decker sandwich because you have 3 or 4 generations. You have the grandkids, the kids that may have come back home, and then you've had the daughter who is trying to care for her aging mother, and she's also, chronologically aging. So it's a very interesting circumstance.
Well, as we're living longer, I think it's going to become more challenging. It's wonderful, but more challenging. I understand that there is 10,000 Canadians over the age of 100 now, but in 5 years, there's expected to be 50,000 Canadians over the age of 100. Is that anything close to what you see?
Yeah, we're seeing that an awful lot. My mom, I always use her as an example because she's this absolutely she's a dynamo. She lives in a condominium by herself, but she had a lady who is 98 years old move in to her condo corporation. to live out the rest of her years. She's downsized to a condo at the age of 98, and there's no reason why she can't. And she, my mom's like, you would never know that chronologically she's 98 years old. We're seeing some very youthful, chronologically older people. And I always like to define the chronological because we do have a bit of ageism in our society. Brian, I don't know if you
A
are
little
kind
bit.
of, we have a fair bit of ageism in our society. We assume that an 80-year-old looks a certain way, or we assume a 70-year-old looks a certain
Hey,
way.
hey, 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 I got to interrupt. I got to interrupt you.
Sure.
This past Tuesday, I went to a concert by The Who. There was
Oh,
an
yeah.
80-year-old and an 81-year-old on stage, and they made 50-year-olds look old. Like they were rocking it like you wouldn't believe. To see
Yep.
an 80-year-old and an 81-year-old from The Who scream and yell and sing and play the guitar like they did. Roger Daltrey and
Awesome.
Pete Townsend were
You've
pretty
done it
amazing.
well.
So if they can do that at
That's
80, we
awesome.
can do whatever at 60, 70, 80, 90.
No, absolutely. And it's that mentality that we have to define someone by their age. And as soon as we say a certain age, we have a vision of what they should look like in their head. And that's completely changing now, right? And that's where sort of the ageism side of things is coming in. And we like to sort of wash out the age side of things and just look at the function or the physical status of that particular individual. Doesn't matter what their chronological age is. It really doesn't hold a lot of weight anymore, how old someone is. Yet society does seem to sort of still peg people. Like, have you heard of a 55 plus lifestyle community?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're saying from 50, someone at 55 plus can come into this community because their expectation is that someone at 55 is starting to age and getting into retirement. Well, I'll tell you, the 55-year-olds I know are not, they're not looking for a lifestyle community. They're not looking to go to the senior center. They're not looking to do any part of that. So we're seeing this really interesting shift where as people are chronologically aging, we're starting to wash away this societal view of getting older, and just saying, okay, if and when it happens, it's going to happen. We don't care what the birth date is.
You mentioned this elderly lady moving into a condominium. I had a marketing person for a real estate entity tell me recently that one of the big trends is people in their 70s and 80s that may be single because of divorce or becoming a widow or a widower, joining up
Yep.
and combining households, and not necessarily because they can't afford it, but because they want a friend. They want some socialization. And so they're renting or buying a two-bedroom something or other and moving in together and becoming roommates. Is that a trend that you see?
Golden Girls, Brian. Do you remember that show, Golden Girls?
You're kidding. So we're going back to Golden Girls?
Yeah, we're not going back, but we always laugh because these ladies were very forward thinking, in the way that they had their setup. But yeah, we are seeing that, and we're seeing friends say, you know what, it makes sense for us to room together. It makes sense from a social perspective. It makes sense from a sharing of duties perspective. Maybe someone has limited mobility, but the other person doesn't, or maybe someone has an advantage over another person, and they can put their independence together and have this wonderful life of aging to as a group in an environment, and we're seeing it more and more.
What do
It's
you
really
do? What do you do when one spouse gets dementia, and ages or has health issues significantly worse than what the other spouse has?
we see that so often. So the number one person calling us is the daughter. The number two person that calls us our system is the husband or the wife who is trying to support their spouse who has cognitive decline. And it is such a painful um, experience for the family. Like dealing with cognitive decline is such a painful experience for a lot of families because they feel as though their loved one is leaving them. The person that they knew once is no longer the person that they know now, and they have to rebuild that relationship. And I always counsel our families and say, like, look, you need to find a way to rebuild this relationship because they are still the same person. They're just not, interacting with you the same way that they used to. And the biggest consideration we have here is the health of the primary caregiver. Because if there are cracks in the pillar of the main post of the home, the whole house can come down. So if I am trying to care for my husband who has, cognitive impairment, and I'm the one who's bearing this responsibility. If I get kicked into hospital, what happens? Families need plans for these kinds of things because, life happens and it happens in the strangest ways in some cases. And we've seen so many situations where people are literally in crisis because of this one lack of a plan when the pillar in the household crumbles. And it wasn't expected. It was expected that the other one would have the challenge. But caregiving is a huge responsibility, and it can really weigh on someone. And if the person in particular is stoic or stubborn or doesn't feel as though they can ask for help, that is probably the biggest risk that we have with families, where the mom's like, nope, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden you find out that they're not fine.
They're not fine.
They're not fine. Yeah.
I
And a
read
lot
this review of a book written by, I think, the wife of Bruce Willis,
of,
who had dementia, and some specific dementia that was really quite bad and quite accelerated, or has, and her challenges of being the caregiver, and that, as you said and she described, he forgot who he was, forgot who the family was, and changed into a different person, and they had to rebuild the relationship. That's got to be unbelievably challenging.
it is unbelievably challenging. It's one of my favorite scenarios. I used to love working with families that were facing that. It's just you really have to shift your thinking and recognize that the person who's experiencing the cognitive decline, whatever they're exhibiting, they're not doing it on purpose. And I always used to tell my families, think of someone who's wearing a leg cast from the hip down to the ankle, and they're in a wheelchair. Would you expect them to be able to stand? If they stumbled while they stood, you'd be like, oh, I understand why. Cognitive impairment is like having a cast that you cannot see. And I'm not talking about the mobility. I'm just talking about their deficiencies might be as a result of the cognitive impairment. You can't see that. So for a lot of cases, it's frustration. It's lack of patience with the person. It's not understanding what they're exhibiting in terms of, behavior, and just stepping back and really thinking about it from a different lens. You have a totally different perspective on cognitive impairment. It doesn't make it any easier for a lot of people who are caring for that. Brian, caregiver respite is one of our largest services. So, if the mom wants to go out and have lunch with her girlfriend, we'll come in and support her while she leaves to care for her husband, keep her husband busy and engaged, and fix some lunch and whatever the case may be. That's a huge, huge service. And that's mostly because we are still dealing with a lot of scenarios where there are couples living in the same home, and one of the couples is bearing the responsibility of caring for that, or a daughter. Or I use the word daughter because it's usually a daughter, but or a son.
Well, I've been told that, regrettably, I don't know if this is regrettable or not, actually, but the reality is that it's the eldest daughter that makes a lot of the decisions. Is that your experience?
That is our experience. There's always the alpha daughter in the family, and sometimes it's a son, but we call them the alpha daughter. When we're dealing with scenarios where families are trying to care for a loved one, there are sort of a sharing of responsibility, but there's usually one person that comes to the forefront and says, okay, I'm going to go down the care avenue. Maybe someone's going down the financial avenue on the other side, but there's always that one person who spearheads the care decisions. And that's the person that we end up speaking with in our right at home system.
We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with Dani in just 2 minutes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about technology and how it's changing things in this situation. Stay with us, everybody. We're back in 2 minutes. We're talking about aging in place, aging at home. All of us are going to age, and we need to be thinking about this. And if we're not worried about it right now, we're going to be obviously dealing with parents and loved ones that are aging. And so, and what Dani's telling us is 97% of us want to age at home and or at least age at home as long as possible. And so, therefore, I think it's something that we've got to be mindful of and thinking about. And actually, Dani, it's interesting. I've been told that regrettably, because we're aging longer. We're living longer, which is not regrettable. That's fantastic. But that often there's not nearly as many friends and community around, because some of our friends have passed on, and so therefore, if you were thinking about where you were going to live in your sort of your last stage in your 70s and 80s, there were a whole bunch of people around. You wanted to stay in your neighborhood, but if it's in your 90s and 100, there aren't as many of your friends around, and so therefore often people are moving to where their children are living rather than their final last residence being where they've been their whole life. And people not only want to sort of age at home, but they want to age in their community, where they
Mhm.
went to church, where they went to shop, where they went to bank, where they know people, and that's less available if we live a lot longer. Anyway, we're gonna take a break and come back with Dani in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We've got Dani DePetrillo with us today. She is the Chief Operating Officer of Right at Home Canada, which is an organization that really helps people stay healthy and happy and aging in their house, aging at home as they possibly can. Danny, I want to ask you about technology and how
Yep.
technology has changed. It's as simple as I've been told that one of the biggest problems is people tripping and falling down and falling out of beds. I had one guy come on my show to pitch this technology that would send an alert if it could notice when people fell out of bed, because falling out of bed was a big issue. To all these people that have got these sort of things around their neck to make a call or an emergency call or a button that they call. How's technology changing what you're doing?
Technology has been a really interesting development, to say the least. We've moved very swiftly in the last, I would say, 18 months to 24 months into the single function technologies like the wearables you mentioned, press the button, um, falls detection, those kinds of things that you can detect if someone has like changed from vertical to horizontal. We're moving more into multi-function technology, and I'll speak from experience. One of the technologies that we've embraced at Right at Home, it's a platform called Sensi AI. So it's a audio-based platform that we actually put into our clients' homes, and it picks up on cues and changes in patterns. They're all audio cues, so it could be verbal or nonverbal. It's only excited about things related to health and care. It doesn't pay attention to anything else. And when there is a change in pattern, or when there is something notable, such as a call for help, a thump, a bump, a bang into a wall, it will it'll take take a screenshot and send an insight to our care feed. The thing I love about technology these days, and Sensi in particular, and we hand selected Sensi because it is trained for thousands of different sort of predictive care scenarios. It is not your single function technology. It can detect whether there might be something coming down the pipeline. So there might be a UTI coming down the pipeline, or someone's experiencing perhaps a predictive respiratory condition,
How would
or
you predict a UTI?
so maybe more frequent trips to the washroom. Like, this is technology that understands what has been happening and when things change. And it's so incredible, because the thing that I love about this technology is not only is it going to alert us if there is a fall or a cry for help, and that is like one of our huge emergent issues, as you mentioned at the beginning of this segment. But it gives us insights into our clients' homes even when we're not there, and helps us understand what might be transpiring. And so our team can then involve a circle of care and start to make decisions. And it's this really neat, literally plug-in technology. It's like this big. And we come in and we plug it in. We're trained to install, but we plug it into a regular plug, and we can see when it's online. And over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6 days, we start to see insights coming through to us. It could be insights that say the person might be lonely. It could be insights that say there's a positive care relationship in the household, because it's noted that the tone of voice used with a caregiver is endearing. It could say someone's going to the washroom more frequently. Someone's turning on the TV at 2 o'clock in the morning. Someone's doing this, someone doing that. So we have all of these insights. The key for us is that there's a human on the other side of those insights. The technology is not telling us what to do. It's telling us what it knows. And so we look at what it knows, and then our care planners look at it and go, that's interesting. And we can then action the item. So it's this really neat burgeoning and change in technology from the single function into these multi-functions. And I think that's going to be the future of keeping people safe at home. Having not relying 100% on the human to understand what's happening all the time. This is to augment our humans. This is not to replace our humans. This needs humans. We're still delivering the care. It needs humans on the other side of the technology, but it's really cool.
Should I be worried about this? Is this Big Brother looking over us?
No, it's not that at all. It's really only interested in what's happening with your health and what's happening with your care. It does not care about anything else. And the insights, like actually, as I was driving here, Brian, I just got an alert to my phone that one of our clients had, it was a cry for help. And in my role, I'm not necessarily going to help that particular client because it could be our Vancouver office, for example. But just the dissemination of this information and knowing that that particular person has cried for help is incredibly important to us because it might help us change the care plan. Maybe this person doesn't have care on Sundays, and maybe we'll see a pattern where on Sunday afternoons, this particular person, maybe there's no family around and they have cognitive impairment and they start to cry out for help. Maybe we shift our Saturday to the Sunday, for example, and use it to our sort of our advantage in helping that particular person and refining that care plan. So it's this really neat care co-pilot, I'd like to call it. That's not, it's supporting us in our support of the family and our client. It's not replacing what we do. It's really neat.
So if I'm interested in your services, or maybe I've got, a parent that I think should be interested in your services, what's the process? Do I have you come in and, consult with me as to what I need? Like, is there a platinum version that costs me outrageous amounts of money? Like, how much does this cost? How do I figure out what I need? How do you plan what the care services are?
Well, the thing is, we don't expect you to know anything. So really, all we suggest is go to our website and then either call the care line, which is on the website, and then that will put you in touch with the local care planner of that specific local office. So you might be in Surrey, BC, you might be in PEI, you might be in downtown Toronto. We'll put you in touch with the local care office where they have their local care planners and their local teams, care teams. And they will go out and assess what's happening. They'll have the conversation. What's going on in the home? Sometimes the conversation is just with the family. Sometimes the conversation is just with the client. Sometimes it's a group conversation. Just depends on the scenario. And then we look at what is the government providing first and foremost. Have we triggered the government care, because we might as well trigger free care, right? The government funded care first. Where's the gap? Is there a gap? How can we make a cost-effective and efficient care plan for this particular family that can pivot if care needs change? So sometimes we're dealing with clients that they're on the recovery path, like you, Brian, when you had your MVA. Sometimes we're dealing with clients that are unfortunately not on the recovery path, and we need to augment our support. Then we add in the technology piece if it seems to be the right addition to that particular family. So we're basically just kind of taking all of their needs, funneling it through our wonderful care planners, reaching out to get other supports in the community so we can package this thing together that, usually a small piece of it is right at home, but we're a piece of the puzzle. And so it's up to us to help put the puzzle together for our families. We don't expect you to know anything. Just call us, honestly. Just call and talk to the care planner.
Give me a sense. What can this cost from and to? Like, is it like $100 to $1,000, or $1,000 to $10,000? What is it?
Well, no, we go by the care hour. So it's a very human business. So if we're with our clients for an hour or 3 hours or 5 hours, then we're charging our clients for the time that we're providing our services. And that service care hour can range anywhere from, let's say, $35 all the way up to maybe $70 if we're dealing with a palliative nurse, and anything and everything in between. It's just a combination of what does that person need, what skill sets are required, how often are we in, and we'll put together the package. So some 24/7 clients could be, tens of thousands of dollars, and some, sometimes we're only going in for 3 hours once a week to change the bed linens and make a nice pot of soup and serve lunch, and that's all that they need. So it's really designed and tailored to the particular individual.
Danny, I want you to take a big step back, if I
Yep.
could, for a minute. I think that this is really a big societal issue. We've got the baby boom that is aging and getting into those years. As I mentioned earlier, it's been described to me before as a coming tsunami of elderly people. We're living longer, and so therefore that group that's getting bigger is going to be around for a longer period of time. And I'm told that 80% of the healthcare dollars that we spend in our lifetime are spent in the last 18 to so months of our life. And so that there's a huge amount of money that the government's going to be spending, that there's no way that institutionally we can have them in seniors' homes, in old age homes. And what you say is 97% of us want to stay at home and want to stay at home as long as we can. That we've got all these things that we need, whether it be help with, as you say, a bowl of soup, to changing linens, to incontinence, to bathing, to dealing with health issues, to dementia, etc. If you were going to sit down with the Minister of Long-Term Care, what
Mhm.
would you tell that minister that we've got to do as a society to deal with this? And I guess I'd compound it with, some people are saying with our sort of our issues with immigration that look like we're going to be bringing immigration down, we may not have enough people that want to be caregivers in the future. So we're going to need a lot more caregivers. But do we have caregivers? And are they going to want to do this kind of work? And are they going to be trained to do this kind of work? So what would you, if you were the Minister of Long-Term Care or you were sitting down advising the Minister of Long-Term Care, what would you tell?
I think that investing in home care versus bricks and mortar is the smartest thing to do at this point. The reason being the cost of home care compared to the cost of long-term care is it's much more cost effective. It's helping people stay where they wish to stay. It's supporting the family unit so that they can continue to live out their days in a way that they wish to. And I think someone's choice really is important. Like, I don't know about you, Brian, but I've never met anybody who says, I can't wait to get to I'm 95 years old and go to a long-term care home. Like, I just can't wait to get to a nursing home. Says nobody at any point in time in their life. And it does serve a tremendous function. It does serve a tremendous function. Would that particular person prefer to be elsewhere? Probably, right? Lack of option for them might have forced them to go that route. So I would say shift the thinking away more from building bricks and mortar and how can we solve the home care concern? How can we move home care to support people in a non-transactional way, in a meaningful way? I would say that first and foremost. And I would also say that long-term care needs to be modernized. They need to shift their thinking from the buildings that they have right now, because it's not necessarily the environment that people are looking for. The new ones that they're building are definitely moving in that direction, but there are long-term care communities that really they need to be upgraded, updated, and made more functional, with more focus on social, with more focus on the human behind the resident.
Well,
That's
I've had it described to me that some places are like cruise ships, the way you describe, and that's fantastic if you want to be at a cruise ship, and the social aspect is spectacular. And then other places are like just a warehouse of older people, and the HVAC systems are not effective, and that's one of the reasons why we had the COVID-19 challenges that we had. And so I think that you're right that we've got to make sure that we're building places that we can be proud of, the place that we would send our parents to, if that was what was required. I think the other issue is, and again, you would know this far better than I and know if I'm accurate in this, but I've been told that one of the reasons why we have emergency room wait times is that there's a whole bunch of people that are using up beds in emergency rooms that would be better either at home with your kind of services or in a senior's home. But because they don't have the money to go in a senior's home, and or they haven't had arrangements made for, or the government doesn't fund it to be at home, there's no place else to go but a hospital, and the hospitals have to take them. And so that we're if we're not addressing this issue the way that you've described, we're going to end up creating this big blockage in our hospitals. Is that true?
I would say that's very accurate. Not exclusively. It's not exclusively our high care needs community that's in hospital that doesn't necessarily need to be there. But the traditional thinking that we've had is kind of, it goes back to the 50s and 60s, and we need to modernize our thinking. So we need to be more preventative, first and foremost. We have to make sure that we're keeping people out of hospital. Can we be predictive in what's transpiring? Can we be responsive, more responsive? Things like Sensi, for example, being able to detect a fall. If that person wasn't wearing their wearable, right? You have to be wearing your wearable to click the button. That traumatic fall could possibly have been addressed much sooner if that person was, known to have fallen. So we have to be more modern in our thinking in the preventative side and not the reactive side. Our healthcare system is set up for response. It's not set up for, the 10 years beforehand. We have to start thinking about what happens the 10 years before all of these things start to happen, and have a plan. As a society, we need to have a plan. Do you follow anything in like Europe and like Norway and Sweden and stuff in the dementia communities that they have? Have you ever heard of those,
No,
Brian?
no.
Just amazing. I think there's one that's opening in Vancouver area. Intergenerational communities designed to support people with cognitive impairment. They go to the shops. The person at the shop is trained to work with people with cognitive impairment. There are kids going to school in the same community. It's a big gated community to keep the residents safe, but it feels like a normal community to them. And they go out and live out their best days in these really interesting, very cost-effective communities. And we have to start thinking about this kind of stuff because
That's fascinating. I got to ask you. I've got to ask you a question. I got to ask you this question. Then. So there was this movie about Margaret Thatcher
Mhm.
when she had dementia, and her husband Dennis would allow her to dream and think that she was still prime minister. And the daughter would come in, no, Dad, you've got to sort of correct her that she's not prime minister anymore. And he says, no, like she wants to talk about what she would do. What do you do with someone that's got that cognitive problems? Do you correct them all the time, or do you sort of go with it?
My philosophy is you go with it. They're living their best days. So people who have cognitive impairment, it's called the winds of dementia, Brian. I might be getting too deep for you, but you think of like a stack of paper in front of a window. And as cognitive impairment happens, it's like a breeze blowing in the window, and the papers start flying out the window, flying out the window, flying out the window. And the memories that are deepest down in that stack are the ones that stay. And so people with cognitive impairment are usually living out what they feel is their most productive days. So Brian, you're going to be interviewing people on the radio. Uh, but why would I stop you from that joy? Right? That's my philosophy. If it's not harming anybody else, why would I stop you from that joy? If I were the care planner for Margaret, I'd say let her live out her days. I had a client, and he would host board meetings with our staff, with our caregiver. And he had means, and he had some other staff in the home, but he would hold board meetings, and that made him feel great. And he ended the board meeting, and then he'd go on with his day. What's the harm there?
Danny, this has been a wonderful conversation today. I really appreciate it. Please remind us the name of your organization, what the website is, if people are interested in checking out you, your company, your services, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. We're Right at Home Canada. So rightathomecanada.com.
Thanks so much, Danny. This has been a really interesting conversation, and I think that you're really addressing a critically important issue that our society's not dealing with the way we need to, and I do think that I think that the seniors' homes are wonderful for the right people at the right time, because for a lot of people it is going to be the last place that they go before they pass away, and so therefore making that place as wonderful as possible, and as social as possible, and as good from a healthcare standpoint as possible is really critically important. But as you say, a lot of us want to stay at home as long as possible, and making that environment as effective, as efficient, as friendly, as social, as safe as you possibly can is wonderful. And if you're helping people do that, I congratulate you and thank you. So appreciate
Okay,
the
well,
opportunity to meet you.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. Super fun.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos go up on my website, briancrombie.com, and on YouTube and social media and on podcast servers as soon as the radio show goes to air. Thanks, everybody. Good night.